Hello, this is Erica with Launching Legacies. Welcome to our daily devotional. Today we are finishing our devotional series on the guarding and unguarding of my heart. And remember, this is my personal testimonial, and so I've given some ideas for people who have struggled in ways similar to me with being overwhelmed with their emotions. And so I kind of want to end with this component of emotional wellness, which is to recognize that that learning how to work through heart woundedness and overwhelming emotions is a process, and so it's not going to come directly quickly. It's a process where you're going to manage and then work towards mastery of your heart and your emotions, because for people who are very emotional, just naturally very emotional, it's not going to come easy, and it's not going to come one at a time. And I was working with a client even last night, and her comment to me was, I feel like some of these things are really just confirmation, like I already know some of these things, but I've had a really difficult time practicing some of this emotional wellness, some of these deep things in my heart. And what I explained to her is that, yes, you will have a difficult time because you're used to letting the emotions take you wherever they go, or hiding from the emotions and using some substance or something to kind of get away from it. But if you give yourself the time to really work through the truth one step at a time, you'll find more mastery of it as you go. So you just have to learn you manage it for a while. You keep managing and working through the emotions, and then eventually you will arrive at mastery to whatever degree mastery is for you, right? And so each and every one of us are different because we have different emotional configurations, but it's important to recognize it's not unattainable. Definitely attainable to manage our emotions. It is a process, though, and so be encouraged if that's you, and know that it takes time and practice. I will tell you, though, my most recent area of management in the heart, just so you can understand that it is definitely a process. And so recently, which actually started this devotional series, why I decided to discuss it, was I was having a conversation with one of my sisters, and she and I were talking about, well, she's my younger sister, closest in age to me, and she and I were talking about how volatile I used to be, volatile and kind of intense that I used to be, and how much healthier I am now. And really, I can only just really thank God, because it really was just a process, and it wasn't a fast process. It took time, but being better and practicing more wellness has gotten me to a different place in my life, and I recognize that, and so did she. But what she was really kind of working through with me was this idea that there are times when I am not that calm, managed, able to kind of reason and think through things. I still have emotions, and I'm still definitely very personable, but I'm managed. I'm not overwhelmed, and I don't seem out of control. And so she said, there's times, though, Ericka, when I'm interacting with you, and it's hard to predict. And she says, and it comes that you get really kind of intense again, like you did when you were younger. And we were trying to, through dialogue, figure out when those times occur, like what's the impetus for those times. And so what we came to recognize, or she and I, through conversation, which was really my debriefing counseling session, was that I do get intense like that, especially when it comes to specific areas. And so it's very, very, very thin areas. But what we found was that for me personally, I would become very emotional when it came to someone who was very close to me. So not my clients. They have their issues, but they don't usually affect me in emotional ways, but more so very intimate relationships. So basically family members, my daughters, my sisters, and so on and so forth, my parents, maybe my extended family. I'm very close to them. So very intimate relationships, when I felt like I couldn't help them, or the situation was hopeless, or we've done all we can and we're kind of at the end of it, I would know to believe that God will work it out, but I would still struggle with getting to that emotional balance. Like I would go through an extreme emotional process before I would fully be able to let it go and walk away. And although the moments that she was describing were brief, very brief, they were still profound because of the intensity of my disposition and personality. And I told you she's the one that always said you're very extreme. And so what she was explaining was like, you're extreme, so as soon as you go into this place, it's jarring. She said, and it becomes more jarring because you're so well now, right? If you were just kind of always doing that up and down emotional roller coaster, then it wouldn't be such a surprise to have a drop, right? Because you're on a roller coaster. But when you're walking down the street, imagine you just drop off. It becomes a more intense thing when you have it, even though it's brief. And so what she and I navigated around was that I was using my emotions in place of communication. And so how that works was, instead of expressing my genuine concern in the matter, I was having an emotional kind of outburst for a moment and then coming back to a regulation point. So a good example of this is, something's going wrong in an individual's life and I've done all I can to help them, but it seems to be that they need to wait out the storm. They need to go through these difficulties. What I would find myself doing is getting a little bit worked up, and it looked like anger. It looked like frustration towards the person because I was really disappointed that whatever efforts have been made were not going to prevent this person from suffering. And I recognize suffering is a part of the human condition, but because they were so close to me and because I love them so much, although recognizing it, I wanted them to see if they could navigate through channels that were less, contentious, I guess. And so big picture, I would become a little frustrated and kind of seem dismissive of the person, kind of like don't want to deal with this issue right now. And it's really an abrupt feeling. And then I would come back to a place of reasoning and then be able to work it out. But what I needed to communicate that I wasn't communicating other than through my emotions was, listen, I'm very concerned about this place, and I'm sorry that it looks like you're going to have to go through a bit of hardship in order to come out. I hope that I've done all I can to help you through this matter, and now I'll have to trust that as you go through this, you won't be wounded in ways that are, tremendous. You won't be really hurt, but it does pain me to see that you have to go through these difficult times that probably seem preventable. And so that sounds like an odd communication to say when someone is talking to you about, I don't know, their child who's not doing the right thing. However, for me, it's necessary because I'm feeling these emotions. I'm feeling the sincerity of it. That's what I'm experiencing. Rather than letting them make me upset or visibly frustrated, it's important that I articulate, this is what I'm feeling for you. And I'm sorry that it's happening. But once I get it out, right, once I can actually work through it and talk about it, then it's easier for me to move forward without the emotional outburst that really isn't necessary. And so that's the way that we talked through it, and I realized, sometimes I guess when it's really personal and I kind of get caught off guard, I don't take that approach, and I really need to. Just say the sincerity of what's really troubling you so that you can stop being troubled and move forward. And so that's my process right now, right? So that's my process, to be aware in situations that are unorthodox or unconventional in my regular relationships, and utilize excellent communication as opposed to allowing my emotions to go someplace. And that's really important and very valuable. But, I want to remind you, this is my sister that's working with me through this, right? And so we need to rely on other people who can be trusted with their emotions, who can be functional, who can support us, and let them help us walk through some of the places in our heart that may not be fully done yet. They're not mastered yet because we're not done. We're still a work in progress. And so if you can identify with things like this, then great, because I want you to understand years and years and years of hard work have gotten me to a place of relative stability. But as we go through the journey, the reason why we have relationships, one of the reasons why we have people in our lives is because they're to help us through the remainder of the journey. And we won't, none of us will be perfect until this is all over, but the process is very indeedly important. So we value relationships because they do make us well in places like this. And then lastly, I want to give you a word that my mother says. She's been watching my devotionals. Thank you, Mom. She's been watching these devotional series, and what she nodded to and said is that, you know, she appreciated this devotional series, but she says, you know, what keeps coming back to mind is the passage that talks about what should we be thinking of. And so she says, it makes me think of to be thinking of the positive things, whatever is of good report, whatever things are virtuous, whatever things are redeeming. And she's like, it seems that we need to keep our mind attuned. And she said that was how she managed her emotions, was to keep her mind attuned to the things that are of good report, the things that are glorifying, the things that are working well. And so she says, you know, turn your attention towards that. It kind of seems like what you're saying, Ericka. She was telling me that last night. And I said, well, yeah, Mom. Yeah. I mean, absolutely. It is about looking and focusing on the things that, what's going right, you know, the things that are going well, because your emotions will take you down a slippery slope, but you don't have to follow them. You can meditate on the things that that give God glory, that bring goodness into this, into the picture. And you can see those things, not to fully avoid or escape the difficult things. You do need to work through them at some point in time, but every time is not the time, right? And so knowing that and being wise in that regard is very important. And so I want to close our devotional series out with that, is that you can learn to manage and master even your heart issues, but you'll need to use a lot of tools. One of them is relationships, so don't negate your relationships. The second, though, receiving the peace of God, right? We want to receive the peace of God. And the third is capturing the thoughts and holding them captive, realizing that you are in charge of your emotions and not the other way around. Remember this advice: don't ever let your emotions drive the car. It can sit in the passenger seat. It can do all the backseat driving it wants to from there. But don't let your emotions drive the car, because they'll try to take you places that you don't need to be. And it's important that we learn to master guarding and unguarding the heart. So let's work towards that together and collectively. I'll be praying for you. I hope you're praying for me personally. But then also, I want you to know that we're praying that you would heal, live, and grow. And that's our mission. But also that you be praying for Launching Legacies. I know a lot of prayer going around, but we value all of those connections in prayer. And we are grateful for you to watch our devotional series. We definitely want you to look us up online. We're launchinglegacies.org. We're on social media outlets. Holler at us. Let us know how you're doing. Let us know what you think of our work, and continue to be blessed. Until Monday, we'll see you again Monday. And until then, be blessed.